Right, this is the greenhouse of my friend Mr. Vic Knight, who makes a speciality of growing these Conophytums and Lithops, and they're looking jolly good now. They're looking extremely nice and floriferous, or whatever you call it. And this is my friend Mr. Vic Knight. Hello, Vic there. How long have you been growing these plants, Vic?
I think about 16.5 years now, Johnny. As you know, prior to that, I was growing the Stapeliads for about 7 years, and as my retirement was in the offing, I knew very well that if I wanted to go back to Austria after 36 years, I'd got to get rid of the Stapeliads because they're too time-consuming and take too much looking after. So what I did, I sold the whole lot, or most of them I gave away, and then I had to consider what sort of a family of plants I was going to replace them with. After much deliberation, I decided upon the Azoaceae.
That's a big family then, that would be, would it, Vic, the Azoaceae?
It is an enormous family.
What would be the actual habitat of these plants then?
They come mainly from the southern part of South Africa. Along the west coast, through Namaqualand, Richtersveld, Bushmanland, the arid Namibian desert, Namaland, and central southwest Africa, Namibia.
And would they be difficult to look after?
Not really. The main thing to observe is the water table.
So it must be very dry where they actually grow. So how do you have to decide on this watering?
Yeah, well, it's
principle?
always a good thing to know from which part of southern Africa they come from,
yes,
so that you can sort of adjust the water table accordingly.
Mm-hmm. So you have different watering regimes for lithops and conophytes in different times of year, presumably. Perhaps you'd tell us
some
about
of their distribution is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Others are scattered far and wide over long areas, and they are subjected to all sorts of climatic conditions.
I see, right. Mm.
Some get winter rains, some get summer rains, some rely upon sea mists and coastal fogs for their life-sustaining moisture. Others are subjected to vicious sandstorms. Others have to tolerate frost and bitter cold winds in winter. In general, they come from a very unfriendly and extreme environment.
Yes, yeah, very hot and not much rainfall per annual rainfall, presumably not very much rain per year.
Some of them get virtually none at all.
None at all. In some years, none at all. Yeah.
Some get virtually none at all. A lot of them are sort of buried under the sand.
Yes. Yeah.
And lithops, apparently, they can pull themselves into the soil, and they're covered by sand. This also affords protection against grazing animals, goats, wild asses, and also birds, rodents, even baboons.
I suppose they would find the moisture in them very, very welcome in a dry climate like that, wouldn't they? All these animals, they would.
So, yes. Apparently, they're extremely difficult to find when they're not in flower. In fact, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. You say sand. I mean, it's a sandy, stony soil. Would it be that they're in habitat? A very sandy, stony soil, not just pure sand of any sort.
It's more of a quartzite.
Quartzite, yes, grainy.
Sort of granite, all sorts of things.
Particles.
There's not very much humus there. And of course they rely on the minerals washed through the minerals.
When the rain comes, people think that the deserts are absolutely barren, but of course they're not, are they? They've got plenty of minerals there to
Oh,
feed
yes, yes,
feed
it's got
vegetation,
regular
but it's just
yes.
that it's not constantly washed down
That's
with all the rain and that.
Yes,
Yeah.
some of them even have to rely upon the dews in the mornings after a
Yes,
hot
that's
days,
right. With the difference
cool
within
nights,
the cool nights and
they
yeah.
do survive.
Oh yes, yes, yeah, right. You'd have to give them a lot of ventilation, presumably,
Ventilation is extremely
in growing them in
important,
greenhouses. Yeah, yeah.
because in this country, Conophytums and Lithops under glass
Hmm.
in very intense sunshine, they will scorch.
Yes. That seems odd, doesn't it? Because
Yes.
if they're growing in sunny climates all the
Yeah,
while,
and you
one
see
thing about them
Lithops,
scorching.
although in their natural habitat, they can tolerate up to 130 degrees centigrade.
Really?
They will,
Yeah.
under glass
Mhm.
in this country, in direct sunlight, scorch.
Yes.
So
Presumably.
ventilation is extremely
Yes.
important,
Yes.
because it's not necessarily the sun that scorches them, it's the close atmosphere
Close
within
atmosphere,
the
hot,
greenhouse.
hot, dry air. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 Talking about the sand and gritty particles where they grow in nature, you'd presumably have to emulate this in the compost medium that you grow them
Well,
into.
not
in-
really necessarily,
No?
because they're quite versatile.
Mhm.
They will in fact grow in almost anything.
Really?
Now, what I grow them in, I grow them in John Innes number 3,
Mhm.
which you probably think is a bit strong,
Mhm.
but there's about 25% John Innes,
Mhm.
25% grit,
Yes.
25% sharp sand,
Mhm.
and 25% sphagnum moss peat,
Mhm.
which adds a degree of acidity to the soil, which they enjoy.
Enjoy an acid, slightly acid soil. Yeah.
Yeah, the ideal is a pH of about 5.5 to 5.6.
Mhm.
The pH, of course, anything above 7
Yeah.
indicates
It's the,
not acid.
not acid, the calcareous sort of limey, limey
Yeah.
soil. Yeah. Talking about lithops and conophytums particularly, what would the difference be between conophytums and lithops?
Yeah, well, the difference is quite extreme, because conophytums, they're commonly known as short date plants.
Short day plants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that means that they don't start to grow until about end of August, September, October, when the days get shorter and the nights longer. They are actually programmed to grow at that particular time.
Even if they're well away from habitat in another part of the world, in somebody's greenhouse, you mean, they will be programmed to.
Yeah, it makes no difference. They're
I
still
see.
programmed to grow at that particular time. And it doesn't matter how much you water them when they're dormant, they will not grow till they're ready.
They won't grow till they're ready. Yes, they've got minds of their own, sort of thing.
Indeed, yes. Now, conversely, lithops, they're termed as long day plants.
Mhm.
And they commence growing in all around about March, April time.
Mhm.
And they flower at the end of the growing period, whereas conophytums flower at the beginning of the
I
growing
see.
period.
Yeah.
So they're quite different.
Yeah.
Nicknames. Often plants have nicknames. Do these have any nicknames attached to themselves at all?
Yeah, these plants, they've got various nicknames, or colloquial names. The lithops, of course, are called living stones, and the conophytums are probably called cone plants. The Germans call them skittle plants.
Stickle.
Skittle plants.
Skittle. Ah, yeah.
And the natives
Yeah.
call some of them Hottentots buttocks.
I must see.
Which is quite appropriate sometimes if you look
I
closely.
suppose so, yes.
Yeah, but actually the word lithops comes from the Greek word litho, which means stone,
Yes, yes.
and ops, which means face,
Face, yes. Stone
or
face.
looking like a stone.
Looking like a stone,
Yeah.
yeah. And they certainly do. So, I mean, they could be, that's how they get the name of mimicry plants, isn't it? Because
Indeed, yes.
they grow
Yes,
amongst
they are indeed
stones.
mimicry plants.
Yes, yes.
And they are masters of mimicry.
That's right, and as you've said before, they're very, very difficult to find in habitat because of their
true,
resemblance
yes.
to the stones in which they grow. And the Conophytums, they're
Conophytums
called
comes from the Greek
cone.
word cono,
Which
which means cone,
cone, yeah.
and phytum, of course, meaning plant.
Plant. Cone plant.
Yes.
Yeah. Do they put these out in the desert roads when they do repairs? Cones.
Yes.
Well, a lot of lovely flower colours there are, Vic, especially in these Conophytums. Quite a range, isn't there?
What sort of range do they go through?
Yeah, they're very vivid, aren't they? Some are even pastel shades. I think they cover about all the colours of the rainbow. Talking of Conophytums, of course.
Yes.
Except blue.
No blues?
No.
No blues?
No blues.
Oh, I wonder why that is.
They really make a lovely display when they're in flower.
Yes. What about scent? Do they have a perfume?
There are certain ones which are nocturnal flowers, which exude quite a heady scent, which is quite pleasant,
Yes.
which gives one reason to believe that in habitat they are pollinated by night-flying insects, probably moths
I
or
see.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, there are various shapes of Conophytums. There is the spheroid ones, and there is the bilobes, which are the two sort of ear-like appendages at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And
The flowers always come out of the splits and the tops of these bilobes, don't they?
yes, they do
Vic?
indeed.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they come out of the tops of all of them,
I see.
irrespective
Yes.
of their
Yes.
shape.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
These seem to have several bodies on them, Vic, these do here. Would they be, what sort of age would they be anyway?
Oh, yes, that is so. They, as a matter of fact, they multiply every year and form large clumps. I would say these are seed-grown plants, and I would say they've got to be 6 or 7 or 8 years of age, because from seed it takes a Conophytum between 3 and 4 years to flower.
Yeah. These in this tray here seem to be more or less single heads. Are those grown from seed?
No, they're not. These
No?
are all cuttings
Mm-hmm.
taken from the parent plants
Oh,
last August and September.
I see. Yeah.
It is not wise to take cuttings much after the end of September.
Mm-hmm.
They have difficulty rooting.
Oh, I see. And you have to apply bottom heat, would you, in a
No bottom heat
propagating
at all.
form? No bottom heat
just
at
in the
all.
open greenhouse
I
in a
see,
sandy
yeah.
compost.
Really?
Just in a sandy compost. And you should plant them very, very close together, because apparently the root hormones from the plants grow close together, sort of stimulate growth.
Yeah. So you'd say that they were pretty easy to grow from cuttings then?
Oh, it's easy,
Yeah.
easy. Well, it speaks for itself, I think. Virtually every one
They're
of those
flowering
is
as
taken,
well,
yeah.
so they've all succeeded. Yeah. Should like to show me how you'd take a cutting, Vic, then, of
Yes,
a Conophytum?
certainly, yes. Yeah, I've just removed this head from one of the bilobes, just to break it off down below. And what you do then is you remove the outer skin very carefully.
So, having removed the skin, then what do you do now, Vic?
Well, what you do now, before we go any further, that white portion there is the meristem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that you leave that where it is. It will, in fact, pull right out if you're not careful.
Oh,
But what
I
you
see.
do then, you just snip it off as close to the plant as you possibly can. It doesn't matter if you damage the outer skin. You then place the cuttings in a container on the bench for about 3 days until the cut completely calluses over.
Oh, you're going to put it now into the soil?
Yes, yes. You just really push it gently into the soil like that. It's dry. Just spray it again periodically, just keep it moist, and in about 2 or 3 weeks it'll have roots on it.
So what sort of time of the year would you actually do these cuttings then,
The
Vic?
best time is at the beginning of the growing period, which is end of July, August,
Yes.
September, but not much later than September, the beginning of October, because the later they're put in, the more difficult they are to root.
Oh, I see, yes. So,
Yes.
like most things, there's always the most appropriate time when they want
All
to...
you need to do is to give them a light spray until growth is evident, and then you just leave them alone until you're ready to pot them up.
Fine. They've got some lovely markings on them, these plants to have, haven't they, Vic?
Yeah, they're quite attractive, really. The markings and lines on them, they're actually windows which let in the ultraviolet light.
Windows?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes. These, by the way, the Obcodellum types, they're all the night flowers. Their flowers are like little shaving brushes of various colours, and they're not grown for their flowers actually, they are in fact grown for the markings of the plants and the beautiful scent that they exude in the evenings.
So they would attract night flying insects
Indeed
to
they would,
do
yes.
the pollination, wouldn't
Yes,
they?
yes, that's right, in habitat. They
Ah.
would be pollinated by moths and other night flying
I
insects.
see. Yes, the size of these is something about the size of peas, would you say, Vic?
Yeah, well, I would, but some of those are considerably larger, you know. I mean, some of those flat-headed ones are almost an inch across. But this one we're looking at now is quite a small one, with heads probably just a little bit larger than a match. And I'll demonstrate to you how they look when I point with a standard biro.
Nice, that's really small, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right, we'll have a look at the lithops then now. Vic, tell us about these.
Yeah, well, here's a large panball. I think they've been in here, oh God, at least 5 or 6 years now. They probably want repotting. Because you'll notice that some of them are almost pulled themselves into the soil. You'll also notice the various markings on them, which are in fact windows which let in the sunlight.
Windows, oh that
Yes.
sounds interesting. Tell me about the windows.
Yeah, well, the windows, the marking on there are windows, and they absorb the ultraviolet light from the sun, which manufactures the chlorophyll within the plant.
Mm-hmm.
You can appreciate how difficult it is to find them in habitat, because some of these, you'll notice, have pulled themselves virtually into the soil. But there's a debatable point about that, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that lithops have got retractile roots, that the roots actually pull the plants into the soil.
Oh.
But then other people say that they shrink that much that they disappear from view.
Yes, I suppose either way is true, really, isn't it? But
Yeah.
nobody seems to have decided whether they have those roots. do
Indeed.
they? Yeah.
But you can appreciate that why they're so difficult to find in habitat. They're mostly covered by sand anyway.
Yes, yes.
And they blend so well with their various colours and stripes and things with the quartz and granite amongst which they grow.
Mm.
The only time they're really easy to find is when they're in flower.
Yes, of course, yeah. And obviously you won't find them in desert like here, where they've got labels by them to say, say where they are.
Exactly,
Yes.
yes. As I said, lithops flower at the end of the growing
End
period.
of the growing period.
Which is October, November time.
Yeah.
But it looks to me as if these are not going to do much flowering this year.
You have good years and bad years with them.
Yeah,
do you?
well,
I suppose it
it's
could-
to do to the climatic conditions in
Yeah.
England.
Mm.
Yes, because
Yeah.
they're very. I mean, Conophytums, for instance, the nights are still too warm for them,
I see, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and until the weather's right, they will not perform properly.
Mm. They have some lovely colourings on these. They seem to be more colourful, perhaps, than the Conophytums, don't they, the lithops?
The plant bodies, yes.
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 Is there any particular reason for that? Is it regional variation or just variation in species anyway and forms?
The only thing is lithops are extremely difficult to identify, because if you sow the seed from one seed head, from one
Yes.
capsule,
Yes.
you probably get about 5, 6 different patterns.
Out of the one seed
Yeah,
pod,
but
it's
they
like
don't look alike,
hybrids, like
so-
garden hybrids.
So how are you
yeah.
going to identify them?
Exactly, yes.
Very
yes,
difficult.
Yes.
And by the way, we are between 136 and 140 varieties, forms and cultivars.
Really? Mm.
Yes, representing about 36 species.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
No, not just a little few then. There's,
Oh no. There's
a big
lot of
family.
them.
A big
Yes.
family indeed.
I like the yellowish ones. I think they're quite attractive.
Mm.
Yes.
Yes. Right, you were saying earlier on, Vic, that you wanted to grow plants which thrive on neglect. How did you manage to start that?
Yeah, well, that's quite true, Derek. I can give you a shining example of that. In the second year of my retirement, I went to Austria for 3 weeks. I came back, there was very little change in the greenhouse. But while I was there, I was invited back again in the beginning of August in the same year, which I accepted. And what I did before I went, I just shut the greenhouse, turned the fan on, and relied entirely upon the roof vents for circulation. And as I say, I was away for 2.5 months, and the plants in this greenhouse had no water or attention whatsoever. So when I came back, and I expected to find them all dead, and I looked at the 6 pans of lithops I had here, and there wasn't a lithop in sight.
Oh, it all died off.
Well, I thought somebody had pinched them, quite frankly. But anyway, there were little depressions into which the grit had fallen, and I carefully scraped a bit away, and I saw the surface of a lithop. I thought, my God, it's still alive.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yes.
Oh.
So what I did,
Yeah.
I gave them a copious watering, a real good soaking,
Yeah.
and in about a week, they started to come to the surface. And then the buds appeared, and they flowered that year as they've never flowered before.
Really?
So it must have been corresponding. It must have corresponded with the sort of situations they have to put up with in
I
habitat.
see, yes. Years of no rain and then suddenly rain and the flowering
And of course,
of the
the
desert.
hot sun, you see, they seem to pull themselves into the soil out of the way,
Yeah.
which proves
yeah,
it.
for protection, as it
Yeah,
were.
indeed,
Yes, yeah. Great. Gosh, this one's a nice colour, Vic, this lovely purpley colour.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Mm.
Yes. Well, this plant has actually got a poorer relative, which is sort of green, which grows quite near the coast, near the sea,
Yes.
in an area subject to heavy fogs. Yes.
And it's actually called Optica rubra.
Just called Optica.
Oh, that's called Optica,
Yeah.
but this one's called Optica rubra.
Yes.
Yeah, and what you said it was known as what?
The gemstone of all the lithops.
Oh, the gemstone of all the lithops.
Yes.
Why? Because it looks like a...
Why it's its unique colour.
Yes.
Actually, about 20 years ago, this plant was deemed to be quite rare.
Really?
Yes, but nowadays,
Yeah.
seed is available from specialist societies,
I
specialist
see.
seedmen, and
Yeah.
quite easy to grow.
And where does this come from then?
It comes from the diamond gibby,
From the diamond
mine in South
diamond
Africa.
mining area. So
Yes.
it's very special then. You can't get into that area, can you? It's
No, you
sort of a
can't, no.
no-go area.
No, but
Lovely.
as I say, seed is now available.
Seeds now available. Right. And tell me about the seed growing.
Yeah, well, seed growing is comparatively easy. The first thing you've got to do is remove the capsule from the plant, wet it. The capsule opens by a method called histons, which is the mechanical method that takes place when the seed is ripe. But these plants, both lithops and conophytums and most of the other mesems, respond to water
Yes.
and in habitat when it rains. raindrops fall on the capsule, and it immediately starts to open from the centre and unfolds till it looks like a sort of a starfish, exposing the little seed compartments. And according to the law of averages, a rain spot at some time has got to make a direct hit onto the compartment and sort of wash the seeds out onto the floor, where when conditions are right they germinate. Immediately the rain is finished and the sun appears, the capsule closes again.
I see. Yeah.
So therefore there is a supply of fresh seed throughout the year. The seed are extremely small, almost dust-like, and if I point to them carefully with this wire, I'll give you some idea of how big they are.
How big they are? I think how small they are.
Yeah, they are. For God's sake, when you handle them, don't sneeze.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'll have no seeds left.
Right. Right, well, you're going to show me how you go about this seed growing lark, Rick.
Yes, certainly, Derek. Now, having a pretty large collection, I grow seed on a pretty large scale.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want is a 14 by 8 tray without holes at the bottom, without
No
holes.
holes. No holes.
I cut a piece of capillary matting
Yeah.
to fit exactly.
Right.
I also prepare 24 pots, 2-inch squares, in
Again.
which I insert
Yeah.
a square of
The capillary matter again.
matting.
Yeah.
I then add the compost, which is the only one I've got at the moment, which is John in his 3, so I will use that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I use about 25% John in his 3, 25% sharp sand, 25% grit, and 25% sifted sphagnum moss peat,
Right.
which adds acidity to the soil,
Yes, indeed.
which causes them to germinate better.
I see. Yeah.
So what I do, I just fill the pot up to about a quarter of an inch from the top. I then, what I prepared earlier,
Yes, as they say.
a label cut to fit
Most important.
exactly
Most
in
important.
the middle,
Yeah.
push it into the compost. And there I have 2 compartments in which to sow the seed.
Right.
Now, when you buy lithops from seedsmen or specialist societies, the most you get in a packet is about 10.
Yes. Yes.
So it would be a waste to use a full pot. So what you do then, I use distilled water. Now I do not sterilise the soil because I don't think it's necessary. I never have done. And I use distilled water. I put 24 pots in there, and I pour water into the
tray.
onto the capillary matting,
Right. Yeah.
until the moisture appears on the top of the pot.
Yeah.
Now that is the signal that it's ready to sow.
Right.
So then
Fine
you
grit.
take a sprinklet of fine grit and just carefully sprinkle it on top, very, very lightly,
Yeah.
like that. I then get the seed. We'll use the seed we got from that Conophytum to save messing about.
Yeah.
So I'll take those capsules out of the way, and I'll just shake that into my hand like that. Just like pepper.
Yeah.
And then I just carefully sprinkle it onto the grit.
That's-
And having done that, you wash the seeds in with a mist spray like that. Because they settle between the stones, which gives the seedlings support when they start to grow. I then put on a plastic top,
Yeah.
and I then put them into the propagator, which is about 1'6" by about 2'6", with a sand base, 4 inches of sand, with a warming cable in the centre, controlled by thermostat.
Yeah.
I'll leave them in there, set the temperature about 60 to 65, they do not require high temperatures to
I see.
germinate.
Right.
Later, until they germinate. It takes about a week. Temperatures need to be any more than about 60 or 65, and at night they like a low temperature because in habitat the day and night temperatures fluctuate, and it is believed that the lower night temperature is essential to germination.
The difference in the
Yes.
Yeah.
Now then, in the first year they need a slight shade. You do not cover them for them to germinate.
No.
I mean, this plastic top is quite sufficient
That's good, yeah.
to let the light through. But on a very hot day, I cover them with that sort of netlon.
Oh, the fleecy
the
sort
vicious
of stuff. Yeah, I
way.
know. Yes.
And as soon as they've all germinated, the top can be removed. And at that stage, I start to feed them a little.
Really? Yes.
Yes, I feed them with either Chempac 8 or Chempac 4 at about a tenth of the normal strength.
So a weak fertiliser, really.
Yeah, but the secret is get them to grow as large as possible in the first year. And they survive better. They must be kept moist for the first year. They must be kept growing. The next year, they can be treated as adult plants.
Right.
Yeah, like they want their rest period the same as the others.
The normal ones, yeah.
They can be then, when they're about the size of a pea, they can be pricked out into containers like this.
Yeah.
Close together, because they grow better close together.
Yeah.
Until they reach a reasonable size to put in pots, and it's as simple as that.
Right. Lithops and these Conophytums, they have an annual life cycle, I understand. So what do they mean by an annual life cycle?
Yeah, they do indeed. Well, now lithops, as soon as they finish flowering, that is the signal to ease off the water.
Yes.
Now, at that time, they start to lose the old outer skin completely. During which time, usually, they form a new head inside the old plant. But they don't all do it, some are solitary.
Yes, yeah.
And it continues, the old skin continues to go dry and to peel until around about March, April time it's virtually non-existent. It's at that time when the old skin is completely gone that one commences watering. Yes. Now, Conophytums also have a cycle like that. Round about March, April time, skins start to go papery and envelop the whole of the heads. This is to protect them from the sunshine between, say, March, between April, May and August when they start growing. And they stay in this sheath of skin, during which time they also divide and form new heads. And when the time is right, as I said before, they are programmed to grow. When the time is right, the old heads push through the papery skins, and shortly afterwards the buds appear and they come into flower.
Oh, so and this is an annual cycle.
Yeah, it happens every year.
For both the Conophytums and for the Lithops.
They're like snakes. They change their skin every year.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if they're marked this year. Next year
they're
you
okay.
get perfectly new heads.
Yeah, perfectly new heads.
Yes.
They start off as one head, don't they? So how do they get more heads?
Well, they form a new head inside the old skin.
Yes.
Yeah,
and sometimes two
and
will. You'll
notice with Conophytums they quickly form clumps.
Yes, by sending up, let's say, 2 heads per head, as it were.
After the plants are pushed through it is advisable to remove the skins very carefully with a pair of tweezers, because it's an excellent hidey hole for mealybugs.
Mealybugs.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean to say they've got pests with them as well?
Yeah, they have indeed, yes,
Yeah,
they get
pests and-
behind the skins.
Oh, we're talking about pests and
the ones
diseases.
that like a
Mealybugs, yes, I see.
Yes.
They're a
Little
common
horrors.
pest, are they? Common pest for them, and they eat away, don't they? They're sap-sucking
I think
insects.
everybody's got them.
Everybody's got them, yeah. They try to
Yeah.
deal with them. Yeah,
Um,
but they probably have other pests as well, do they?
Yeah, very. I think the dangerous one is the sciara fly.
Scara. Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
you've got
indeed.
to look for it,
Yes.
and particularly well seedlings,
Seedling, yeah.
because they eat the whole of the centre out of the seedling
Yes.
and just leave an empty shell,
Oh,
and you don't notice
You don't
it
know, no.
until later on.
Oh, they're a pest.
They
then,
don't
yeah.
seem to suffer from very much else. If you let slugs and snails into the greenhouse,
Yes.
well, you're asking for trouble, because they love them.
They like them. They like
Yes,
anything
yes.
soft and
You
easy to chew.
very
Yeah.
seldom get fungi infections.
No.
They're pretty pest-free, really.
Mm.
And of course, there is the type of mealybug which is actually under the soil,
The root mealybugs, yes.
which
Yeah.
you don't notice until you take it out to repot.
Yes, again, that's
And you
one
see
of the
the
ones
sort
that
of
are hidden.
telltale cigarette ash on the
That's it.
inside of the pot.
Yeah, I know.
Sure sign that you've got root mealy.
Root mealybug, yeah.
Yes. What I do, I use what used to be called bromophos
Yeah.
in the compost,
Uh-huh.
which seems to be a deterrent.
Bromophos,
But that's
yeah.
now been changed.
Oh, it's been changed.
It's
isn't
called
it?
chlorophos now.
Oh, I see, yeah. They keep changing these things.
Yeah, and
don't
if
they?
you buy a packet now, you'll find on it,
Hmm.
all it says is protection against cabbage root fly.
Oh, yeah.
But I still use
But
it.
you still use it, and
Yeah,
it's
because
effective
it
against
just-
this
Some people
scar.
put crushed mothballs in the bottom of the
Oh,
pots.
yeah, yeah,
That's also a deterrent.
yeah, yeah.
But apart from that, they
They
don't seem
seem
to
to
have
be
any
reasonably,
pests.
reasonably
Yeah.
pest and disease free.
Yeah, they don't get these terrible fungus diseases
Oh,
that some of the
good.
cacti do.
No, good,
So really, they're virtually trouble-free
good.
as long as you keep the vealies down.
Yeah. You know, the flowers on this, Vic, remind me of those Livingstone daisies that we grow in the garden.
Yes,
You know,
that's
the
right.
fact that the daisy flowers seem very similar.
Yeah, well, they are in fact related. Although one would hardly think this related to lithops, would you?
No.
No. Yeah, they are indeed related to all the other MSMs, although they bear little resemblance to a lithop, do they?
They don't indeed, no.
Yeah, yeah.
They're called mesembryanthemum, aren't they?
Yes,
The
they are,
Livingstone
but
daisies.
it's actually
It's-
it's incorrect.
It's, yeah.
The garden centres and the seedsmen, they call them mesembryanthemum criniflorum.
Criniflorum. Oh, that's
Well,
right.
in fact,
Yeah.
it is said they are hybrids originating
Yeah.
from Dorothianthus
Yeah.
crossed with others.
I see.
But the popular name is Mesembryanthus.
Mesembryanthemum.
They are nevertheless beautiful plants.
Oh, certainly.
Yes.
Mm.
Lovely daisy-like flowers
That's
of all
right.
the colours of the rainbow except blue.
No blues, no.
No blues.
No.
And
So-
they cover large areas of dry areas in the garden and rockeries.
Yes.
Cover them with a carpet
Hmm.
of beautiful flowers.
In different. But on lithops, I believe there are just the two colours, aren't there?
Oh, indeed they
yeah,
are. Yes,
yeah.
I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah.
Yellow and white.
Yellow and white in lithops, but the Conophytums have a
Yes.
few more colours with them, as
Yeah.
we've seen.
Some people say that how many varieties of lithops are there? They say two.
Two, the yellow one and the
Yellow
white.
and white, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Now, mesembryanthemum, that's I believe that's quite a big family, isn't it?
Oh, it
You
is
mentioned.
indeed. I'd like
Yeah.
to just tell you a bit of the history about that.
Yes, yes, indeed, yeah.
The genus was erected in the year 1753
Hmm.
by the great Swedish botanist Linnaeus.
Yes.
The only thing is, he included the whole of the family into one genus
Yes.
and called them Mesembryanthemum.
Yes.
Now, this was later transferred to the family Azoaceae, but growers and enthusiasts, they still call them Mesembryanthemums,
Yes.
or more affectionately, just Mesems.
Mesems, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. At the time of Linnaeus, the plant life in southern Africa was, to a great extent, unexplored. And he could never have realised that such a flood of new discoveries of plants from these areas. So many, in fact, now that the genus consists of about 150, family consists of about 150 genera and over 2,000 species.
Good heavens. Gosh,
There was very little literature about these plants. Well, not a comprehensive literature until it was about 1954 when Hermann Jakobsen, a botanist, published his Lexicon of Succulent Plants. He did it in 3 volumes, and he devoted one whole volume to the description of the Mesembryanthemaceae, or mesems as we call them.
As we call them, yeah.
Yes, and sadly it is now slightly out of date.
As with most things, they get superseded.
Because there used to be over 400 varieties of Conophytum, which was reduced by Steve Hammer in his book, his chronograph. It was reduced from about 400 to about 138.
138, yes.
Biome was reduced from over 100 down to about 4.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of obvious duplications there, which have now been eliminated. Yes.
So, in all, an extremely large family
Indeed they are,
of plants, and very well worth investigating anyway. And it's certainly worth.
It's just the name that is confusing.
That's right.
It's never hardly used because it probably sounds better than Mesembryanthemaceae.
Yes. What's in the name?
What's in the name?
What's in the name? So there must be some reading matter for this subject, Vic, for you to. Well, you've obviously got a lot of knowledge anyway, but for anybody else, there are reading books.
Yes, indeed. Well, I would, of course, mention this one. Ed Storm's book is now dead, unfortunately. He died of a heart attack. But it's quite a good book, that. It covers quite a large range of subjects. But the 2 important books, in respect to the plants that we've been talking about.
Yes, just the lithops and the conophytums.
Is the first one is Lithops by Professor Desmond Cole, which covers a whole range of lithops, and the new Conologue by Steve Hammer, an American researcher, which covers the whole of the genus of Conophytum. Absolutely marvellous book. I probably don't agree with all of it, but
well, experts always disagree, don't they? So, regarding experts, you're obviously an expert yourself on growing
I wouldn't say an
these.
expert, Derek.
No, but you're well experienced, shall we say. There must be other people who grow them specially as well, and methods of ways of studying them, a further study with them.
Yeah, well, there is, of course, the Mesem study group.
Study group, yes.
Which is quite recent, actually.
Yes.
It's a separate organisation from the British Cactus and Succulent Society.
Yes.
And the editor is at the moment based in Brighton. And he's an excellent society. It's cheap. It's only £6 a year. And they publish 4 bulletins every year, which are extremely helpful. There's top-class writers there. And they publish a marvellous seed list every spring. And it's well worth joining.
Well worth joining if you want to actually
if you want to grow mesems,
go deeper into Mesembryanthemums, join the mesem study. Right, well,
of course they have marvellous shows.
Of course, yes.
Where you can buy all manner of plants.
Just for the mesems, just mesem shows.
I never show anything.
You don't know. You just enjoy growing them yourself.
Just enjoy growing them, yes.
Right. Well, I think this has been an extremely interesting visit, Vic, and I'd like to thank you ever so much for showing me all around and telling me all about them.
It's a great pleasure. The only thing is I feel worn out.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, but it's been extremely rewarding. I'd like to thank you very, very much indeed. Yeah. Thank you.
No thanks required.